Okay, everyone, welcome. We'll get started. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Angie McCarthy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a program manager at Equal Justice Works. I'm here today with some of my colleagues, Jeremiah, and we also have some wonderful panelists for you to hear from who will share their experiences with you today. I hope you're all here because you're interested in the Crime Victims Advocacy Program. We are going to have the Q&A enabled, so feel free to ask questions throughout, even though we'll probably get to them at the end. But if you're like me and you like to write something while you're still thinking of it, please do. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that the Crime Victims Advocacy Program is supported by the Office of Victims of Crime and the U.S. Department of Justice. So they are the funders for this program. Jeremiah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and take us through the agenda?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Angie. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Headen. I am the program manager for the Crime Victims Advocacy Program. I'm going to walk us through this agenda real quick. I'm happy to be here with you all. We're going to briefly talk about Equal Justice Works and then get into the Crime Victims Advocacy Program, giving you all some background and an overview.
Jeremiah, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Jeremiah, I can hear you. But
I can hear you as well.
Angie cannot. Yeah.
Angie, can you hear me?
Okay.
Am I quiet?
I don't think Angie can hear you, but Marissa and I can.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep talking then. We're going to talk a little bit with the guest speakers, and then we'll get into qualifications and application overview, and then we'll go into questions. So getting into a little bit about Equal Justice Works, as you all may know, our mission is to create opportunities for lawyers to transform their passion for equal justice into a lifelong commitment to public service. And so we do this through our fellowships program, giving you all an opportunity to jump into public interest law and be supported by our wonderful host orgs. We'll talk about it a little bit later as well. Angie, I hope you can hear me. Say, go on to the next slide. Let's see. So again, our mission I just talked about briefly is making sure that you all have an opportunity and a chance to get involved in public interest law through this 2-year fellowship program. And I'll pass it to Angie to talk a little bit more around the background for the Crime Victims Advocacy Program.
Angie, if you can hear us, we've passed it back to you.
Thanks, everyone. So sorry I was having some sound issues. Okay, so moving on. The difference between some of the other Equal Justice Works fellowship programs that you might be more familiar with, the design your own model where you kind of make your own projects, this is part of our Cohort Fellowship program. So the way our Cohort Fellowships program is that there is a need that is defined in the community. And there is a need for the expansion of victim assistance services, in particular in BIPOC communities. And so this fellowship was really designed to mobilize a network of attorney fellows, and eventually there will be law student fellows too, for those of you who are still law students. And the purpose is to meet that unmet need in these communities. So this Crime Victims Advocacy Program aims to mobilize and train a network of 21 attorney fellows, and they're going to serve at host organizations across the country. That way, they will expand the capacity of our host organizations to provide the needed legal assistance to victims of crime in BIPOC communities. And so instead of designing your own project, like you might if you were in a different fellowship program, in this instance, the host organizations have already been selected as partners in this project, and they are going to be working to hire fellows to fill the positions. So you would be working with them more directly on a staff attorney type role, even though you'd be a fellow, than having to come up with your own project in advance. So what are y'all going to be doing if you participate? The first thing is you would be providing legal advice, referrals, representation for victims of crime and crime survivors. In some instances, you'll be enforcing their victims' rights in criminal proceedings. You'll be engaging in outreach and education activities in the communities that you'll be serving. And you're going to be building community partnerships to provide holistic legal services. And our panelists, Precious and Marissa, can talk more about that when we get to them. Jeremiah, do you want to go over where folks will be?
Yes, and so as you can see on this slide, we have organizations all across the country, from Texas, New Mexico, California, New York. Everything that you see in orange, we have an organization that will be stationed here. And so we will have an opportunity for folks to apply through our portal, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, to these organizations to be considered as a fellow candidate for this 2-year program. We can go to the next slide. Now, what are the benefits of being a fellow? Once again, there's a 2-year fellowship term. You'll get salary and benefits as determined by your host organization. You also receive some trainings from Equal Justice Works and our partner NCVLI. NCVLI stands for the National Crime Victim Law Institute, who has a focus on protecting, enforcing, and advancing victims' rights. And so you'll get some great training around how to do the work that you're doing for this fellowship. We also have technical assistance. Again, this is by NCVLI. And then we'll have regular substantive skills-based workshops, conferences, and networking opportunities. Our first will be a leadership development training that's going to be happening in Washington, D.C. in October. And we're really excited about that, as we're bringing not just the fellows for the Crime Victims Advocacy Program, but the fellows from all of our programs together for a training. So there's also a network that comes with being a part of this fellowship. And I'll pass it back to you, Angie.
Thanks. So this is the part where you get to really hear what it's like to be part of this program. I'm going to ask our 2 wonderful alumni panelists, Precious and Marissa. Maybe Precious, you can go first, then Marissa. If you could just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you work now.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Precious Odum. I'm the co-supervising attorney in the Immigration Unit at Public Law Center in Orange County, California. I've been there for almost 5 years. I started there as a fellow in 2018, and I've been graciously promoted to this position. So here I am. So thank you.
Thanks, Marissa.
Hi, I'm Marissa Khetan, normally stationed in Los Angeles, California, but visiting family in Erie, Pennsylvania right now. I was a fellow at the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice as part of the CVJC in 2018, and I'm currently on staff as a portfolio manager here at Equal Justice Works.
Thank you both. And I just want to clarify that both Marissa and Precious were alumni, and a predecessor to this program, the Crime Victims Justice Court, is now the Crime Victims Advocacy Program. The main difference is they had slightly different focuses. This program is really focused on providing services to victims of crime and BIPOC communities. However, they're very similar cohort models, and both of them were serving victims of crime as part of their fellowship. So we asked them here today to talk about their experiences. So I'll throw it back to you all, Precious and Marissa. If you could talk a little bit more about what you did as a Crime Victims Advocacy Fellow in your relative host organizations, remind us where you were and kind of what some of the cases were like and what your day-to-day looked like as a fellow. Precious, you can start. Yeah.
Okay. So I worked with victims of human trafficking. I will say that was my passion when I went into law school. So having this fellowship definitely helped make my dreams come true and be in doing that type of work. So I worked with trafficking survivors who also didn't have immigration status. So I helped with preparing and filing immigration relief related to trafficking survivors. I also represented clients in removal proceedings in front of an immigration judge. And then this work also helped me connect with other law firms to help with preparing and filing civil litigation work on behalf of trafficking survivors. We were able to help trafficking survivors in pursuing civil action against their traffickers. So that's most of the work that I did. And then a day-to-day, if for immigration, it was a lot of paper filing because immigration is a lot of paperwork. So it was a lot of paperwork and declaration and meeting with the clients and a lot of direct client representation. And there were moments when I would have to go to court as well and represent them in court if they were in removal proceedings.
I did quite a bit of the same. And I should also warn you, there's a clock in here that's going to chime in a second at 1/4 past the hour. So pardon me for that. I was representing immigrant survivors of human trafficking in immigration proceedings before USCIS and defensively in immigration court. I also did some human trafficking related vacatur work under California state law. And I represented survivors as victim counsel in criminal proceedings against their traffickers.
Thanks so much. So I guess this is a two-part question. So what are some of the challenges in doing victims' rights work and victim survivor advocacy? And how did perhaps being part of a cohort fellowship program kind of help you meet those challenges, or what benefits do you see or did you see being part of a cohort fellowship model like this rather than maybe just starting off as a staff attorney doing this work?
For me, I will say when I started at Public Law Center as a fellow, I recently passed the bar. So everything was very, very new to me. And then within the immigration unit, I was seen as the expert, which is comical since I just passed the bar. And so with that, I didn't feel as much support, like I had no one to go to for help. And having this fellowship helped me have a group of individuals who also had the same passions and values that I did, but also someone I can go to and complain about and ask questions and receive expert advice and technical assistance. So those were the benefits and the challenges. I will also say that for those who don't know, where I live in Orange County, there's a very small amount of Black lawyers, Black female lawyers, and even lower amount of Black immigration attorneys. So going to these events with Equal Justice Works, or even meeting some people via email, was helpful to connect with other attorneys who look like me and to have that space also complain and discuss struggles being a Black female attorney in this field. So it was good.
I think, some of the challenges and benefits would be that, I think how to suss this out. So a lot of there were like soft benefits, right? So having people to sort of, as Precious is saying, coordinate with, I guess, about, the trafficking vacatur law in California was quite new at the time that I was working on it. And so some judges weren't used to seeing it. Some judges, when I went in as victim counsel or, opposing counsel, didn't know really what that was, or, it really helped to have sort of a group of people, a cohort of people to say, okay, when people are seeing these new concepts in your areas, how are you explaining it to them, and to sort of get those soft ideas. And along those same lines, I think that having a cohort of people that was also starting to do the same work at the same time made it less intimidating to be asking questions and learning things and doing the work. And I say this all the time when I talk about the leadership development training that we have every year, the conference that all of our fellows come nationally, and they come to DC and learn. it is the best conference experience for new attorneys, because usually when you go to other professional conferences, you're there with people who may have been practicing for decades. And to have a cohort of people that were not, no one ever talked down to us like we didn't know anything. They respected the knowledge that we already had and what we were participating in. But I think that was truly the benefit to me of being in a cohort, was it's like a safe space to be learning. And to be learning how to implement these really new ideas. So I think that's sort of rolling up one of the benefits with the challenge of the barriers to entry as a new attorney, and also a new attorney maybe practicing new law or these groundbreaking concepts. So I think it was great for that.
Thank you both so much. One thing you both mentioned that I want to make sure I uplift, because I did mention it before. Part of the way this program is designed is we have a technical training assistance partner, the National Crime Victims Law Institute and CVLI, that works with the fellows and the fellow supervisors all the way through. Can both of you talk a little bit about how that worked as fellows in a practical sense, and what kinds of support you got from your TTA?
Marissa, I feel like you have thoughts sooner than I did. Do you want to go?
I can start.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the structure will be the same, Angie, for this cohort, but not only did we have regular trainings as you would expect, like group webinars, we had quite an intensive onboarding experience when we began, and then NCVLI continued training us throughout, but they also had a portal that we could input requests for technical assistance with very specific information and deadlines, and then someone would reach out with resources or maybe have a phone call with you or an email exchange about how best to address the issue that you were working on. So they were really hands-on, and they're just an amazing, intelligent group of people with such a depth of knowledge and a lot of respect for the fellows they were working with. My experience was very positive, and I didn't feel, I've worked in the public interest sector for about 10 years, and sometimes I find that maybe partner relationships are not as robust as they could be, but I thought that NCPLI was a truly helpful and contributing partner to getting the work done in the relationship. So I see that as a major plus for the program.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your experiences. Before we kind of move on and talk about how folks can apply, do you have any parting thoughts about your experiences, or anything you would like a prospective fellow to know or think about who really is passionate about crime victims advocacy and serving underserved communities, that you want them to know about the overall experience of either starting your career, or some folks might be career changers or coming into it a bit later? Both are allowed with this program, and I'll touch on that. But any kind of just parting thoughts on doing this work?
I loved it. I loved the fellowship. Like I said, when I went to law school, I told my counselors that I wanted to work with trafficking survivors, and she was like, I don't know what that means. And I said, that's fine. I don't either, but it's going to work. And it has. So I loved it. Loved the fellowship. It definitely gave me the platform to, quite frankly, do the work that I dreamt on doing, and to continue providing services to trafficking survivors, especially Black and brown trafficking survivors who are highly sexualized, and just being able to just be some type of access to helping them have some access to legal services, and to be part of that journey is, quite frankly, a blessing. So I'm very grateful for my experience.
I would just encourage folks who are applying, if you end up becoming a part of the program, to really lean into it. And speaking also now as a staff member at Equal Justice Works, I know that there's a lot of, I know it appeared apparent to me at the time, I know now truly how much thought and effort goes into building the programs and coordinating them. And so I would just say take advantage of the resources and, the ability to connect with other fellows. And there's something really cool about feeling like you're part of a team truly that's addressing an issue that's happening nationwide, and feeling like you're really making an impact. So lean into it.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, thank you both for sharing your experiences with us. We're really grateful. Moving on to kind of the nuts and bolts. If you are interested and you're wondering, like, do I qualify for this program? The big caveat is that every one of our host organizations is going to have slightly different qualifications. So for example, some might require certain language skills because of the population that they're working in, or we have some who are focused on crime victims in tribal areas, and so tribal bar membership might be a thing. So make sure you read every single host or posting separately. But in general, we're looking for someone who has a JD from an accredited law school. Some host orgs are totally cool and recruiting folks who just graduated and are sitting for the July bar exam. And some might want someone who's already passed the bar exam. So definitely there is not a blanket exception to this. You just have to look and drill down. Definitely everyone's looking for a demonstrated commitment to social justice, and especially a desire to work in underserved and BIPOC communities and support those communities. Obviously, there's always the lawyering skills of writing, communication, and interpersonal skills. And then, you know, again, just look at the host organizations, look at the communities they're going to serve, think about your connections to them, thinking about why you want to do this work. Once you're ready to apply, I want to let you know applications are open. They are open. The program is open for applications. However, while there is a deadline of July 1st to apply, we encourage all of you to apply early if you're interested. Host organizations will be reviewing your applications on a rolling basis. What happens is that once you apply online, the link there, and we can drop it in the chat, Equal Justice Works will forward your application materials to the host organization you indicate you're applying for. From that point on, the host organizations, they take it from there. So they'll contact you directly if you're selected for an interview. And we encourage you to please direct all your questions about the position at specific organizations directly to them, as they are the best folks to answer those questions. However, if you have any issues with the application portal itself, you're always welcome to reach out to myself or Jeremiah, and we can help you with that. But definitely the host organizations are the individuals to be in contact with if you have questions about a specific position. So here's our email to get in touch with us. And Jeremiah, I'll let you kick off the question and answer portion. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Angie. And thank you, Marissa and Precious. Yes, we're opening this up right now for questions. You can drop them into the Q&A or the chat, and we'll go ahead and answer them one by one. And definitely want to invite folks. No question is a bad question. We're here to help alleviate any, not just concerns, but curiosities as well. I think we have our first question. So applicants do not need to be recent grads. No, applicants do not need to be recent grads. That's a great question. Folks can have passed the bar, been practicing for a while. Really, as Angie mentioned, the real requirement is just have your JD, have a commitment and dedication to advancing the rights of access to BIPOC communities, and submit an application. Marissa, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Precious, do you remember there was somebody in our cohort who had been a district attorney for maybe like 10 years before they decided to become a fellow? Do you remember that?
Yes.
So you don't even have to be kind of a recent grad either.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah. Any other questions? That was a great question.
Well, while y'all are thinking, I have one more question, I guess, for our panelists. Since this is a fellowship program focused on serving the needs of BIPOC communities, did you all in your experiences kind of notice that there were some special needs or scenarios for crime victims coming from those communities?
Yes, I will say, because I work in immigration, there already is a broken system. And I work with the BIPOC community, so there's already chaos ensuing within that role. But in addition to that, I have seen clients I've seen clients where they're trying to tell their story to the police and the police don't listen. I do work in Orange County and it's conservative. And so it so happens to be women of color. Whenever they're trying to report their crimes of domestic violence, they're not heard, and they're ignored. Also connecting it back to immigration, I have seen Black and brown people being detained at higher levels, Black community more, Black immigrants more, so that's also another factor. And I have also seen how there's a language disparity. So if someone speaks an Indigenous language in their removal proceedings, it's hard for them to get an interpreter that speaks that language. So there's a lot of barriers, and also trying to get attorneys who would actually represent them. Like the language barrier would be for these attorneys would be a pause to want to help. So I've seen a lot of pushback in helping the BIPOC community, which is unfortunate, but that's some of the things I've seen.
Angie, you can go ahead. Precious, I had written down a list of things to this question and you hit all of the ones that I was going to say too. So I think that was a very comprehensive answer.
Okay.
No, thank you both